everyone. My name is Nikki Morgan, and welcome to my podcast. What we talking? Well, this week we are talking about family. We're talking about growing up in the church. We're talking about how to define music genres. And we even talk a little bit about how easy or not so easy it can be to find braiding hair in a new city. Y'all, this week my guest is Chauntee Ross, and I have to tell you, every time I talk to Chauntee, I feel like I'm at home. I feel welcomed. Chauntee has a spirit and a musicality that is just so unique and so beautiful. I first met Chauntee in Milwaukee when I was playing a house show with one of our mutual friends, Johanna Rose. That was also the first time I got a chance to experience SistaStrings in person, and let me tell you, that night we talked a lot about our families and our upbringing and how there was a lot of similarities to kind of take note of there. Y'all, I could really just go on and on about how cool this person is. Her hair is a different color every time I see her, and I love that. She plays the violin and voice with absolute poise. She has an adorable dog baby named Cello, and she's in a band with her sister Monique, and they make songs like Shea Butter Dreams that will literally give you life. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Chauntee Ross. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. I actually just took I just got back like an hour and a half to home. I live in Nashville now, and I was visiting my parents in Jackson, Tennessee.
Have your parents have they been living there, or is that like a new move? Because I know y'all moved recently from Milwaukee to Nashville, right?
Yep. My parents moved to Jackson, Tennessee about I want to say a couple months before the shutdown. So just a couple years ago. They moved to Jackson, Tennessee, and then so I'm a mama's baby, and so I followed shortly after as soon as I could. But I couldn't be in Jackson; it was too too small. But Nashville was close enough to family, and it seems like the right move to make at the time. So that's what my sister and myself and my little dog, is what we did.
It seems to be working out pretty well for you. In the last year and a half, 2 years, I've seen you and your group do some pretty awesome things. I want to say blow up, but it's like more than that. It's just you've had like it seems like you moved to Nashville and then all of a sudden the world opened up for you.
That's exactly what that seems like exactly what happened. Yeah, it's been a huge blessing. I think so when I moved back to Milwaukee after college was 2014, and that's about 2014. Yeah, that was when my sister and myself started SistaStrings. Her playing cello and me playing violin and then singing harmonies and whatnot. And so that started in 2014. We released our first project, a little EP, in early 2019. Early summer of 2019. And so it took us a long time to kind of figure out our sound and whatnot. We played with a lot of different folks. In Milwaukee, we were playing with everybody from singer-songwriters to rappers and just kind of doing that thing. And I think especially linking up with different mentors and stuff, I credit Peter Mulvey as being a really great mentor for us as well. And just getting to meet folks coming into town, through town, and whatnot. So we kind of we were doing a lot of groundwork when we were living in Milwaukee, not knowing that it was going to really pay off when we moved to Nashville. Because as soon as we moved there, we had a whole bunch of allies on our team, like sending those emails to folks and being like, SistaStrings coming in town, you need strings, you need this, you need that. And we just ended up like being in like rooms and spaces that like would not have even dreamed of happening this fast, let alone at all. So it's been, it really has opened up in a beautiful way. There's like a really dope movement of Black and brown and queer folks in like Americana and folk music, where that are just kind of reclaiming and taking this beautiful space where everyone's just like lifting each other up with whatever opportunities they have. And so I'm just really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah. That's okay. So like I saw like an interview, or like maybe it was like a performance that started with an interview. But I know that you have mentioned that like a part of your musical foundation is in gospel music.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, because like that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. My whole background is in gospel music, like many people, growing up in church. Wait, and also you'll have to tell me, correct me if I'm wrong. Do I remember correctly that like one or both of your parents are like pastors or something like that?
Yes, both my parents are ministers. We talked about this in my backyard for a long time. I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yes. So like it's there. How do you feel like gospel music play into either the foundation or how folk, Americana, even country music? Like, do you feel like where is that placed in there? Does that make sense? Did I phrase that right?
I think I'm understanding. As far as how I can interpret it, how it's there is I mean, honestly, growing up, I thought country music was boring and weird. And as I got older and started actually listening, there's a storytelling part of it that's so beautiful and intricate. And I think it can be dry, just like any other music, if there's not that passion and soul behind it. And I think that's where like gospel music really affects, at least in the music that I think that I make, in like or at least that I hope that that I make, is that like that passion, even if it's just like that repetitive one harmony and change, like, you know, that key change and everything, that intangible thing that music has, I think really stems from like just the beauty of gospel music and like letting the spirit move, if you will, whatever genre that it is. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question right, but that's how I interpret it.
That's you actually said something that I hadn't really put into words or thought, is like the storytelling portion or part of gospel music. And I never really thought much about that aspect of it. But just the other day, I was thinking about how I miss testimony service, like the portion, like the testimony part of church services. I miss that so much. You just like hear so many amazing things that people have like experienced, or their experience with God, or just the fact that like they made it through the week, and that is a blessing, and we are going to be excited, and I'm gonna tell y'all my story, and we're gonna, you know, shout and praise God and everything else. For me personally, I think the storytelling is a really big part, but I know that you're also classically trained. So when it comes to like genres, do you usually approach the definition of a genre from like the technical or like the theory standpoint? Like blues is this,
right,
mechanically, or is it more of like the feel?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it might have to be of the feel, because I can't even clarify or categorize some things other way. So it would have to be like the feel, and I still really don't understand genres too much, really, either. As a thing, I'm like, music.
Exactly.
You know, like anytime anybody tries to ask me like, what genre do you think SistaStrings is, and I've started saying like alternative folk or something like that. But like I still don't know. I'm just like trying to figure out words that will help somebody be able to put me in some type of like category. But I'm like, why am I doing that?
Right. I like that alternative folk though.
You know what? I figured out if you put alternative in front of anything, that it's kind of like this, but it is not.
Exactly. I like
what we gonna do.
But I mean, like, it's true though, because y'all play everything from like classical, like what you would, you know, most people would think of classical, but then you also play more culturally specific traditional music, so like spirituals and stuff like that. But then you also play with like fucking beats. So like y'all really do like everything, which is really dope. I have to say, I love your hair color today.
Girl, thank you. My mom did it yesterday, and it's like this new color. It go from purple, like black, to purple to pink on the tips, and I'm just so excited about it.
Do you get different colors, or do you get like already ombre?
Yep. I get the already ombre situation. But let me tell you, in Nashville, they I don't know exactly the audience that's listening to, but if you go to the Black Beauty Supply stores, the ones in Nashville, they have all the kinky twist hair colors. I don't dye my own hair because I did it once and my hair just kept falling out. So I just do a bunch of protective styles all the time, and hair care is just I love hair care. But I you always want to be cute and popping, while you keeping your hair braided up and stuff. And so I found all the best colors I've ever found in Nashville. I'm like, what? I would have never found this anywhere else. Chicago, where else did I go? Milwaukee. That's usually where I was at. That's like I was about to be everywhere. But of the places I have found so many beautiful hair colors that are like of like the same texture as my hair, so it just looks so natural and it's easy to wear, and I'm so excited about it.
What kind of music have you been listening to lately?
Oh, what kind of music have I been listening to lately? Well, I've been listening to I just was in a whole car ride and I was just listening to the same old stuff that I always listen to, honestly. But I've been listening to a bunch of Jasmine Sullivan. That new project, Hotels, was fire. Teyana Taylor. I was listening to some good old Ella Fitzgerald. I'm trying to learn a concerto. It's a Brahms double for cello and violin. I'm trying to learn that with my sister. So I've been listening to a bunch of like Hilary Hahn and classical music lately, like when my mentals can take it, because I have to be in a certain space, I think, for it. But then also, because with all the Grammy nominations and everything coming out, I've been trying to like dive in. I feel like moving out of Nashville, I feel like I've just been like kind of in a little bubble, being raised very conservative and stuff like that. And then I went to college and all those things. But there's so much music, and I feel like I'm so behind in like, honestly, some of my music education outside of classical music and gospel music. So I've been trying to like, when different stuff comes up, trying to listen to new artists that I wouldn't usually listen to. But I've been listening to Brandy Carlisle a little bit lately. Okay. I've been rocking with that,
Nice.
Kind of, yeah. So, I mean, I'm a little bit all over the place with it, but that's what I was just listening to the most. So, that's that I can get.
Let me tell you, the first thing you said was Hotels. By Jasmine Sullivan. And I know that came out earlier this year. I don't know time anymore, but I know it came out not too long ago. And that was like if SZA Control, which was like all about her 20s, I feel like Hotels was like if SZA Control grew up like 10 years.
Yep, I can see that. Yep.
I've always wanted to ask somebody this. What is a concerto and what is a double concerto?
Okay, I don't know what the exact definition is, but we're going to do a Chauntee class, which can be a bit colorful. From what I understand, a concerto is like a solo work written for a specific instrument. So you can have saxophone concerto. What makes it a concerto? Okay, it has more than 3 movements, I think, or more than 2 movements. So it has like the first movement's usually fast and about like however long, and then you're not supposed to clap between movements, and then they go to the second one and it's usually slow, and then the last one will be like pretty quick. If there's a third movement, it's probably like a scherzo, something like that. I don't know if that's the clear definition, because there's also sonatas. I think a sonata is like a solo work for instrument and piano. I'm tapping into something here. I think it's, but it's like a solo work meant for like a instrument, and then there's usually an orchestral part with it as well. So the double concerto is the violin and cello are the soloists in the orchestra.
Gotcha.
Like play around with us after. And this double concertos aren't as common, because who wants to write 2 really intense parts and then write a whole orchestral score? Not me.
Somebody's out there. Somebody's out there. Like, that's always been a wonderment to me, is like composition. Because I mean, like, there was a very brief period of time where I considered going to grad school for music composition.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
And if it happens, it's not about to happen now, because that is like a whole another level, in my opinion. It just seems, but I mean, like, going back to the gospel thing, composition is such a beautiful, because I'm thinking of Richard Smallwood, for example.
Right.
Like, Total Praise. I'm not super familiar with a bunch of like classical pieces, but things like that are amazing. And it's just so cool how emotions and almost like a spirit can move through those notes, because it's not just like improvised in the moment. It's something that's meticulous and orchestrated and practiced and intentional, and it still offers this like extreme bandwidth of emotion that people can tap into, which I think is amazing. It's so cool. Just like one of the gifts of music. But that makes me think of again, something that I heard you say in like an interview or something, is that you feel like one of the things that's necessary to keep classical music and music around and alive is to diversify it.
When I moved, I let everybody know I was moving and all that and stuff before, and set up a number of students with other teachers locally that were taking lessons. But then some of them were like, we still want to do virtual lessons, because we were doing that anyway because COVID. And so I was like, we can hang on. So I still had them for the year. I had about 10 girls, and I just had my last lessons with them. So I'm like, I mean, I'm really curious to see where, because music education is a huge part of like my passion. And like, if you sit down and Chauntee, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's going to be involving music education, because it's just so important to, as you were saying, to diversify the stage and the people that are playing this music, even if it's the oldest music. Like, a young girl from the Bronx is going to play Bach completely differently than like the little Jewish girl from New York. You know what I'm saying? They both can be gorgeously beautiful, but like the more that it looks and sounds different, I think the more folks will relate to it and want to come to these concerts and whatnot. So that's always like a big part of what I'm doing, trying to do in life. But I only have 2 students left, the ones that I can like, because my schedule is just too much of a mess. I didn't want to do that to them. A friend of mine had brought up, she has a son that plays violin. I actually started him playing violin, and she messaged me because she was going to send him to summer camp for string playing, and she was just noticing how very white all of the music festivals for classical violin playing were. And she was like, the only festival I can find in summer that seemed like more conscious of like folks of color and stuff was Sphinx, which is an organization that started as a string competition for Black and Latino string players. And it's like evolved over the years. I think they're like going in their 20th year or something like that, into like a conference that they have every year. And they give a bunch of grants, and they give scholarships, and they have like, they go into schools. They do a lot of great work. But their festival, she was like, that was the only one she could find. But also, the kids have to be at a certain level or a certain age before, or just a certain level, regardless of your age, before you get there. There was nothing for like beginner, intermediate students. And so we got to talking, like, there's so many pockets that can be filled in music education. So I'm hopeful. I'm not done yet. I'm still gonna be Miss Chauntee. Yeah, there's nothing like seeing some young folks that stereotypically you're not supposed to see doing something, do it and do it well, or do it and not well, but having the best time, and just the things that young people learn from learning an instrument, dedication and focus, and seeing themselves grow visibly from like 2 weeks ago. Could you even play any of these notes? Nope. Now you can get a tone out. Like, you can see visible growth, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
I was trying to think of who was the first person that looks like me that I remember seeing playing a stringed instrument. And I'm trying to think, like, I went to a predominantly Black middle school. So I was fortunate enough to be like, to see, I didn't choose to do orchestra, but I was fortunate enough to be in an environment where there were young Black students playing stringed instruments. But the first person I think of that really like stuck out to me was India Ari. And I know that that's guitar, it's not technically the same, but it's like the first time I saw somebody doing something other than like the basic instruments that I was familiar with. Do you remember having a moment like that when you like saw somebody like music wise that like was like, whoa?
Yeah, I would have to say, because I grew up homeschooled for a minute, but I always had cousins and stuff like that. So my parents put us into music lessons at the String Academy of Wisconsin, in the conservatory somewhere else before then. But everybody was mostly white, and then you were sprinkled with some Asian folk, and then every once in a while there was like one other Black kid. I remember Daniel. We were like the same age. I was used to being like the only Black kid in the space a lot of the time. But I think when I was 15, my violin teacher told me about Regina Carter, a jazz violinist. And I remember seeing her just like jam and play, and her tone was like jazz violinist tone. Sometimes is like, it has a different texture. It's a lot more raw. I would like to say that. Yeah, it's a lot more raw. And I remember hearing that, but like it was so powerful and it was so dope. And she was playing all these scales in and out of keys, and it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, that's wild. And I had never seen a Black woman playing violin on like the stage, and it was just like all men around her playing. And I was like, oh my God, like this is incredible. And then when I was like 16, I did the Sphinx competition, the competition I talked about earlier for Black and Latino string players. And I did that. And I made it to the semifinals, and I didn't win or anything, but once you make it to the semifinals, they put you in the orchestra, and everybody in that orchestra was Black and Latino, and it was incredible, a full orchestra. And I like included, like, the conductor was a Black man who was cracking jokes like during rehearsal, and I was so used to being in orchestra practice and being like told to shh, be quiet, and shh, like this, that, and it was like, everybody was so joyful. It was like we was kicking it, and then it was like, all right, let's get to it, and everybody was like on it and like playing. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting chills thinking about it now. That was like the craziest thing. I was just like sitting in the middle of all these amazing players that are like in symphonies across the world, but like the only one of, or like there's just a few of them so spread out. And then like as the years go by, I'm like, there's a bunch of us. A lot of us just are choosing not to play in orchestras no more because, I mean, culturally, it's still really stagnant.
What about when it comes to like faith? Because you do have two parents that are ministers, but at this point in your life, have you found that there are things that, like, even in that, in like who you are, how you like approach life now in comparison to like how you came up with that kind of being your foundation? Do you find that there's like discrepancies or things that you thought was bullshit, but now you like, no, this is actually like a good compass or a good anchor? Or are there things that you've had to like reevaluate and be like, oh no, I see where they were coming from with this, but I don't really believe it to be exactly how I was taught?
Yeah, I've definitely had to like reevaluate, for sure. My parents are like, my mom is one of my best friends, but we're very like in a lot of ways, and we are so different in other ways. Like, but we were raised super conservative and strict. Okay, like there wasn't no curfew because we wasn't going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So as far as kind of like, I always associated Christianity and their faith as like something that was stifling rather than something that was meant to help me flourish and and be able to be in the world and be a good person and things of that nature. It was more like we are a peculiar and chosen people. We are going to be so peculiar. I actually had a friend of mine ask me the other day, like, because they knew how I was raised and stuff, and they were like, "Do you define yourself as like a Christian?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would define myself as a Christian, I guess." And they were like, and I was like, and I had to think about it. I was like, I guess probably because that's what I am used to and that's what I know, but like really my faith looks completely different from my mom's faith or my dad's faith, you know what I'm saying, as does everyone else's. I believe in God. I believe God is in me. I believe God is in the music I play. I believe God is in you. I believe he in my little dog. All different denominations and faiths are just they're all pointing to God, goddess, wherever we are, and that we're spiritual beings. That's just, to me, undeniable. And I just have to believe it, but I had to definitely reevaluate. It had to become, for me, in order to find the faith in the God that I choose to serve, I had to find a freedom in it rather than a stifling, strict rules and regimen, and you're wrong and you're right and you're this and you're that. It was too much of that. I'm like,
do you find that that's something a little tricky to navigate, being in the profession that you're in? Because I mean, like myself personally, I started in theater and then I started making music. And I don't know, it's something about the arts world, especially those like performing arts. Like there's something about the arts world where there's a particularly high concentration of people who don't want nothing to do with God. Like I will always respect whatever anybody's stance is and who they are. But I agree with you. Like, I feel like there are just as many understandings of God as there are people. Like everybody's understanding, connection, relationship with God is going to be different. So I guess going back to the question, do you find it, like, how do you navigate, like, or do you find it any kind of challenging, or is it just nothing for you at all to, like, navigate being in this, like, professional artist world and being a musician with your faith, with God and, spirituality and all that good stuff?
Oh man, I have to say I haven't come up against anything, but now I feel like a black person who's like, I've never experienced racism. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but like honestly, I haven't had any issue because I mean my parents, even though they were very strict and all that, they were also very loving, and they did a lot of like outreach work. They used to have something called the Church on Wheels, and we used to go like to the hood everywhere and like give out backpacks and do like Thanksgiving we do turkeys and Christmas and things, different things of that nature, and partner up with different churches. We've been so blessed to be around good people regardless of what their faith or non-faith is, that there's like a set of principles and like a connection of music that we all have that I don't think I could ever have met such beautiful people in another like way of life. I really don't believe I could. And like a lot of us in faith-based are completely different in what that looks like. But I've had many different conversations with folks who believe completely differently, and everybody's so respectful and thoughtful of each other, and like kind of like I never come anywhere to fight. I'm no, what is it, theologist? I don't even know the word, child. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm never going into any conversation about faith trying to fight somebody. It's either to like understand or even just to listen sometimes, even if I'm like, oh, I really can't relate to that, it kind of doesn't make sense to me, but like I am actually curious what you got, what I'm saying? It's never been that, but like it was a while my parents still lived in Milwaukee when we were SistaStrings first got going, and like so many folks that we were working with really closely hadn't even met our parents, because it was like my mom and dad wouldn't even come to a place that had a bar. You know what I'm saying? It was like, this is the restaurant we're playing at, like nada, like this is just a venue. They're gonna have a bar, like nobody's getting wasted at a SistaStrings show. We play the freaking strings, you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta have a couple glasses of wine, maybe, food. But anybody, it's not a club by any means, you know. So it took them. They're starting to come around. They're starting to come around. I really believe, but yeah, the biggest hurdle would have been with them and see their daughters be in different spaces and being like, no, I'm still who I am at the core, and the music that we make, you know, I think speaks to that as well. And I think that just all had to speak to itself, and they had to, either you're gonna get with it or you ain't, child.
I've tried to write worship songs. I've tried to write songs about God. It don't work. That's not my ministry. And it took me a minute to have to like accept that and be like, oh, it doesn't mean that I'm like blaspheming my gift because I'm not writing songs that are explicitly about Christ. If you listen to my music, I'm sure, and you guys' music as well, you'll hear the correlation. You'll hear how that plays a part in your life. Because it is an imprint in our lives, it's naturally going to come out in our art. But my music, your music, is not explicitly about come to Jesus. And it took me a minute to be okay with that and be like, no, it's okay. You can say these things. This is still a gift. Does this mean, like, what is next for Chauntee and SistaStrings?
I like that you said what is next for Chauntee, because honestly, well, this is what's funny. My sister Monique and I are always been like kind of conjoined at the hip, you know, everywhere. We didn't go to the same college at all or anything like that, but all my best friends always knew her. All her best friends always knew me. It was always like Chauntee Monique. We went to separate schools and we did our own thing, and then SistaStrings came back. So we were used to, in Milwaukee, being kind of clumped together. All of my siblings, honestly, the Ross kids and all that.
But then, of course, do you have?
I have 3 more outside of Monique, so there's 5 of us total.
Okay.
So I was been kind of clumped up into a thing, and then like moving to Nashville, there's because I worked like 2 part-time jobs in Milwaukee, and was teaching my own studio and like trying to gig everywhere. It was a whole hot mess, and I've been totally blessed to be able to be, for the first time in my life, a working musician, you know, and that's been crazy incredible. There's tons of like studio work and all those things, but we met Allison Russell and JT, her husband. They was doing Birds of Chicago, was rocking and rolling, and played at Cafe Carp in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. Is where we met them at our good friend Peter Mulvey's like singer-songwriter round that he does there like twice a year. And so we met them. It had to be like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe something like that. And we met like it was like they did 2 nights there and we did 1 night. We all sitting around and everybody took turns playing their songs and we would jam on each other's songs. And it was so beautiful. I remember hearing Allison's voice and she was playing her horn. And it was just like insane. And JT was just like the coolest bro. They wrote the most beautiful songs. And we were like, they were living in Chicago at the time and we were in Milwaukee. We were like, we got to connect. Like, we really had a great vibe, you know? Like, yeah, we should hang out. They ended up moving to, like, Tennessee. I didn't know that they had moved to Nashville. We literally I live 4 blocks away from them. My sister lives right next door to them. Like, is in a whole little hubbub. And they, like, become, Allison and JT have become, like, that's big bro and big sis right there. But it also crazily happened at the time when this child done a debut album that is blowing the fuck up. Look, you know what I'm saying?
When it's time, it's time.
When it's time, it's time. And like that, the timing of like my move to Nashville and like that project happening. And Allie's been like, she's been a lifter of folks her whole life. She's been, you know, on the circuit for many, many years. And is just now getting like this recognition and this, you know, the stage, this world stage. But she's been doing this and writing these beautiful songs. I mean, this amazing musician and human being for years and years. And it's just the timing of how everything is just like popping off and how intentional she is about like in shows we're playing, like this is Chauntee and Monique of SistaStrings. This is Mandy Fair of Sway Wild, because everybody else has their own, you know, projects as well, and we all get to come together and be in this amazing band and play her dope music. And then she's like, well, SistaStrings open for me for some days. And we're like, the fuck we will? Yes. So it's like, oh my God, it's been like a masterclass of like seeing how someone can take like just you get a crack of a door open and just pushing it open and being like, come on, let's go. Let's hurry up and go before that door closes. Come on, y'all, let's go. It has been like I want to be like her when I grow up and like do the same thing for like the next and make it easier for the next. So it's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like she's been working for like 20 plus years, you know, doing all this work, and then like here our little raggedy asses come from Milwaukee, like ding ding ding, and like, all right, here we go. You know, it's like,
but y'all been working too. Y'all been working.
Yeah, we've been working too. Yeah, so that's just Chris. So I just, it's just a beautiful thing. It's amazing. And then also we had SistaStrings had recorded a collab album with our friend Peter Mulvey in February of 2020. We spent a week in Fort Atkinson at the Cafe Carp, which is one of my favorite venues. I love Cafe Carp. And we spent a week there and we recorded 2 albums. And we had like the prep for those albums was ridiculous because it was just like 2 emails. Can you come? Is this time? And then the next one was like, I got a bunch of songs that I wrote. And we were like, can we hear them? He was like, I'm still working on some of them. Just know that we're gonna just come in. I need string arrangements, harmonies, like all the arrangements and stuff. I've got the bones. Let's get the meat together. So we just like went in knowing that we had a ton of work. I packed my dog up. We went and stayed there for about a week and recorded a studio album. And then we did a live album and we did 2 shows to get that album. And so the live one's out and it's awesome. Peter Mulvey with SistaStrings live at the Cafe Carp. What a long name. And then the studio album is coming out. So that's super exciting. I'm really excited about that. It's miraculous how this happened.
I love seeing good people win. It's not I don't know. People always say it's a glow up, but it's more of like, it's harvest. Like you fucking put in the work. And now you get to reap the harvest. So I'm really excited for you. 2022 is about to be the
2022.
Amen.
It's gonna be crazy. I can't
even shout for you. Praise him before it comes. That's what they say, right? Yep. Praise him in advance. Thank you, Lord.
Yep, thank you. Praise him in advance. Amen.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there anything else on your heart? Anything else you want people to know?
I just want people to just love on each other and listen to one another and know when it's time to stand up and be the loud one for a purpose. Know when it's time to be quiet and listen also for a purpose. It's a lot of noise going on these days. And I just want people to take care of themselves and take care of each other. Take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others. And I don't know. It's just, I just know that can't nothing good happen all alone. It takes all of us. And I don't know. It's like the most simple message of like, share, think about others and do that. But like, it's deeper than that. And it's just so hard to do once you get into the thick of life. It really is. So
yeah, I
don't know. I just want to encourage somebody today to be encouraged, to be an encouragement and be encouraged.
I'm encouraged.
Yeah, I'm encouraged too.
I love it. Oh man. Well, this was great. This was a very wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
Well, wasn't that fun? I told y'all Chauntee is cool. If you're not familiar with Chauntee's work, I encourage you, go check out SistaStrings. That's Sista, S-I-S-T-A, Strings. As mentioned in the conversation, SistaStrings has 2 albums out that you should check out. One is a live album with their longtime collaborator and mentor, Peter Mulvey. It's called Peter Mulvey with SistaStrings, live at the Cafe Carp. Another album that you should check out is their debut EP called Lift. It has that song I was talking about earlier, Shea Butter Dreams. Go get your life and check out Lift. Anything else you want to find out about the band? Go to SistaStrings.com. I want to say a huge thanks to my guest this week, Chauntee Ross. Thanks to you all for listening and sharing. Big ups to my North Carolina fam, Tai Chi, for providing us with this dope-ass incidental music for the show. And Last but not least, thank you to me for taking the time to do this shit. All right, well, y'all take care and make sure to come on back next week for What We Talking.
Do you have any shout outs?
I want to shout out my sister Monique, the other half of SistaStrings, woo woo, and my niece Braylon, that's her daughter. Yes. Who else I want to shout out? I want to shout out one of my best friends, Kellen, also known as Classic. He's a super dope artist from Milwaukee as well. Who else I want to shout out? I want to shout out all my new family in Nashville. All y'all know y'all names.